Well, good evening, folks, and welcome to another stream. I'm Tara. I'm sure that most of you know that. And if you don't, then what this is it is a weekly time when we come together, we talk about our crafts and our projects, and maybe do a little bit of work together and, answer some questions, anything that you might be thinking about, and that I certainly am thinking about when it comes to your own work. Now, at the helm is Lawrence.
Hello.
And he is, of course, going to make sure that you guys all play nicely with each other. And I have to say, I have some really good viewers, so I'm pretty sure that we're not going to have any problems there. But just be aware, you need to be nice. And we're going to get started here today with, well, the 5 biggest challenges that I have faced while mounting this project, which is a 16th century Italian gown. And you can see it actually is a gown now. It has a back that I'm still working on. It has trim that I'm still working on. It has a skirt that I still need to hem. So it's not quite in shape yet, but it is at least wearable. I have tried it on and it does fit. So that's really the biggest thing, isn't it? So let's go ahead and jump in to those 5 things that have been giving me the most difficulty, as we should say. But before we do so, I just wanted to remind you that my Patreon account is growing, which is really exciting. I am now a 5th of the way toward my goal of doing a second live stream every week, specifically for patrons and for their concerns when it comes to their own projects. So if you would like to help out with that, and you would also like to watch that second live stream per week when we get to 25 different patrons, then you can go to patreon.com/oldfashioned_AF. That's right?
Yes, it
I always
is.
get it wrong. So patreon.com/oldfashioned_AF. And of course, Lawrence is going to put that in the comments for you. But let's talk about the challenges, shall we? So, as you know, I made a chemise completely by hand, and it is off camera right now because tomorrow I'm going to be going on a trip to wear said chemise and said dress, and both are so close to done. I can taste it. They're just not quite there yet. So when I get off of the live stream tonight, I will still be sewing until probably the early hours. Let's be real. But the biggest challenge that I really faced was getting started. I had this dream of making a dress similar to this one for years. And I mean like years and years. Doing a period dress completely by hand, or at least almost completely by hand, and then actually making it in some kind of shape to be able to wear. I've wanted to do that for most of my adult life. And I was just intimidated. I was super, super intimidated and didn't really know where to start, and got scared and made myself scared by thinking about it over and over and over again. And it just took me ages and ages and ages to get started. So that's the first challenge that I faced in, surmounting this big project. The second challenge was getting started with cutting the fabric specifically. So I had already, made the mock-up at that point, which is, kind of the bodice before the real bodice, just to make sure everything fits and is cut properly. I had no trouble once I actually allowed myself to get started doing that. But cutting this beautiful green fabric, I was so scared to do that. And so, if you follow me on Instagram, then you know that I was just like, when it came to cutting the fabric. So that's the second challenge. The third challenge, honestly, is probably the most technical challenge that I'm going to get into today. We might do another segment some other evening about like the physicalities that I was working against when I was making this. But for now, we're just talking about things like psychology. So in this case, the third challenge was the space. And I think that Lawrence can attest to this.
Yeah.
Our space is really small. And I mean, like, we live, he and I, with a cat in 3 rooms that are less than 450 square feet altogether. So Lawrence, do you actually want to show them kind of a little bit
I mean, we could
of
do
our
that.
apartment? It's not very pretty right now, guys. We're leaving tomorrow and we're in a state of trying to pack.
Yeah.
But we're going to show you a little bit about how big this apartment is, just to give you kind of an idea of how ridiculously small it is. So you can see right now, this is the living room with the lights and with the table, and I'm on the couch. And then over there is basically our kitchen. And if you go around the corner, then it's really just the sink with a bunch of dirty dishes in it that we're going to clean as soon as we're off of here.
That's horrible. I can't believe I didn't get round to those yet.
from dinner tonight. And yeah, then we have a bedroom and a bathroom, and really that is it. So it is a very, very small space. And not only am I doing this project in this space, but Lawrence, of course, hosts Lost in the Pond in this space as well. So it's just a really big challenge. And it's one that I physically, had to overcome pretty much anything or any time that I, needed to get my stuff out to actually work. Number 4 is coming to grips with the idea that I actually did have to use the sewing machine at one point. So no, the dress is not completely sewn by hand. It is very close to sewn by hand completely, but it's not quite there. And I'll get into that in, a little while. But I had to come to grips with the fact that I had to use my sewing machine, whether I liked it or not. And then number 5, finally, is just getting into the habit of actually making time for sewing. And with that, sewing wherever I went. Because if I didn't sew in places like the train, or sometimes at work when we weren't very busy, or, at night right before bed, or in the morning with breakfast, then there is no way that I would be at this point that I am right now. So I had to get to grips with using every little bit of spare time that I had sewing things. Now, I am going to talk a little bit about how I overcame some of those challenges. But before I do that, I wanted to know, Lawrence, if we have maybe any questions or if we have any contributions to our discussion so far.
Well, one thing that stood out to me, and this was a comment actually by Donna, first cut is the hardest, almost a Rod Stewart song, isn't it? So that's true. That is definitely true. No, absolutely. I mean, there have been some comments just really actually complimentary about the pattern, the trim that we've added, or you've added. I've done nothing. And all of that. And apparently both of these are, according to Tart and Tabby, great utilization of the space. So that's really good. And Donna says hi. Hello to everyone.
Yes, hello everyone, and thank you very much. Yeah, no, we do the best we can with the teeny tiny amount of space that we have. Hopefully, when our lease is up here, thanks to our newfound patronage, we might actually be able to get a larger space where we can both work well here in the future. What do you think, Lawrence?
Yeah, absolutely. We'll get around to it at some point. And Donna says that she likes to, or she knits in public. Would you sew in public? I mean, you were talking about doing it on the plane tomorrow. Right?
Yeah, so let's talk a little bit about that. Let me go ahead and tell you how I, not fully, but I've tried to overcome some of these challenges. And I think I'm going to be in really good stead when I get into my next sewing challenge, shall we say, here next month. So first thing is, the way that I overcame being intimidated to begin is I literally just made myself get started and then created accountability. So as soon as I had it in my head that I was going to do this, I decided that I needed some kind of community that was going to support me along the way. And, up to this point, Instagram had mostly been for my blog, which of course is oldfashionedaf.com. But I didn't really know where I was headed with it. And I also had just kind of like intermittently posted things without too much of a plan. And now, because I started this and I would not allow myself to be talked out of it, And essentially that's what started this whole YouTube channel and made me accountable to actually finish this. Because the biggest thing was, once I got started and once I decided that I was going to do this and I had ordered the fabric, rather than just letting it sit by the wayside and then doing nothing with it, I knew that these live streams would be happening. And I knew that the people who follow me on Instagram would be wondering, well, whatever happened to that fabric? What is she doing with her time? Where is that dress and how is it going? And so that kept me on the straight and narrow toward, well, where we are right now. So that's really good. So yeah, have some accountability and just don't talk yourself out of it. And that's the best way, honestly, to finally, in my case, get started with any project that you really want to do. Because the thing is, if you fail, then you fail. I mean, like, I did not expect this dress to turn out as nicely as it has so far by any stretch, but it didn't matter because it wasn't about it being a perfect dress. It was about me actually doing the project, right? Knowing that this is like the first dress of this kind that I have made. I didn't put a lot of pressure on myself to do it perfectly or to do it correctly in any stretch. I just wanted to try to do it. And that's really important too. Don't put too much pressure on yourself. Just keep yourself accountable. So the way that I got started, oh my goodness. Lawrence, do you have that water? Sorry, guys.
Yes.
Frog in my throat. Do we have any more comments while I take a sip?
Live television. Yes, absolutely. In fact, a couple of folks, that's the Walker and Dorothy Hott, were wondering when we're going to see you in it. What's the scenario in which we're going to see you in it? Sure.
So the plan for this, and this is the reason why you haven't really seen even the finished chemise on my Instagram account, is I have a very specific location in Chicago where I would like to shoot myself in these, the chemise and in the dress. And I'm going to be going to Renn Fest this weekend, right? So between those two things, I don't know which one is going to happen first, but you'll either see me first on one of Lawrence's videos as part of one of our Finding America videos, or you will see me on Instagram in the finished product once we come back from the DC metro area in Annapolis. And I'm going to do a specific shoot with this. So both of those things are planned. I'm just not sure exactly which one is going to be released yet first. But when I do, you will know because you'll see it. So that both things, I think, will be happening in the next month. Am I right?
Yeah. Well, in my case, certainly.
Yeah. So be staying tuned. And in the meantime, I have another project that I'm going to start that I'll talk about actually in the next one that we will go on together, or at least I will be doing it. And then hopefully you guys will be doing your own projects. But back to this. So getting started, really, it kind of goes back to the intimidation thing. And to overcome the cutting, all I had to do was keep reminding myself that you're not going to see the finished cut. Because with me, I'm a left-handed person, right? I have a little bit of ambidextrousness, just a teeny bit. In fact, for example, I don't know why, but I bat right-handedly. So there's that. But, and I always have, I don't know. But nevertheless, I had to keep on reminding myself that with the exception of very specific places, like this, for example, where it's slashed, no one was going to see where I actually cut the fabric. And so no matter how poorly I cut this fabric, it wasn't going to matter because of the seam allowances. And with me, since self-consciously as a child using my left hand, I would sometimes not very well cut along the lines, then that is, I feel like, maybe a bigger challenge for me in my head, at least, than it might be for someone who's perhaps a little bit better with scissors. So that's not to say that I'm like terrible at scissors and can't, cut my way out of, I don't know, a bushel of mulberry bushes or something if I really needed to, but I don't think that I am the best when it comes to scissors. And so that just like scares the crap out of me until I realize, oh yeah, I don't have to worry about that because no one is going to see that. What's more important is where I've marked the seam allowances and where I'm going to sew, which I'm actually pretty adept at making sure is correct when I'm doing hand sewing, at least. And then I'm not terrible at it when I'm on a sewing machine either, because I've gotten better at that over the years. So there's that. In terms of our tiny space, honestly, we're still working through that. And you guys have heard me before, and you're going to hear me again talk about how frustrating this place is. But the thing that helps me the most is honestly knowing where everything goes and putting everything back in place when I'm finished. And it really helps, I think, that Lawrence is very calm, very understanding, very patient with me when it comes to having all of my craft stuff everywhere.
I'm a good actor. That's all it is. You know that.
So he's at least pretty patient with me when it comes to getting everything out and then putting everything back in its place every time. And as long as I do that, then there isn't any clutter, even if it is a really small space. And I can continue on with whatever work I have to do outside of my project without any problem. But sometimes, especially when I leave things out because, we're pressed for time or whatever it might be, then that's where the space kind of gets on top of me and I'm still working through that. So the best I can say is make sure that everything has a place, make sure you put it away when you're done. And then when you bring it back out, do it with the intention of having some time to put things away when you're finished. Otherwise, it's chaos, honestly. And it has been chaos since I started this project and even on other projects that I've done in the past. It just comes along with crafting, I think, unfortunately, to some extent. But the small space really doesn't help. In terms of getting to grips with the sewing machine situation, I honestly, it breaks my heart a little bit to say this, but I really, really wanted to do all of this completely by hand. And I could not justify doing the skirt by hand. I just couldn't. I did gather it by hand because I feel like I'm a little bit better at hand gathering than I am with sewing machine gathering. But in terms of actually sewing the seams and then attaching it to the bodice, there just was not enough time to get this project done and have the trim sewn on by hand the way that I wanted to, and all of the details finished the way that I wanted to, unless I compromised on the skirt. So as long as I basically compromised and then realized what was more important, finishing the project or doing everything by hand and then not meeting my deadline, then I knew which path that I had to take. So you just have to decide what's more important to you when you're deciding what parts you're going to compromise on and which parts are not going to be necessarily period accurate in my case, and which parts will be. The other thing that I compromised on, even though it wasn't sewn by hand, is the bodice. I mentioned this last week, I think. Maybe it was 2 weeks ago now. But the bodice, even though I sewed it by hand, I actually constructed it pseudo more contemporarily than is really suggested, because I was afraid that the felling on the edges would be just a little too bulky for the silhouette that I wanted to create. So I decided to actually put the lining on the inside and then, turn everything inside out instead of actually felling the seams on the outside when I was finished. And some of that is just because of the trim, but it was also because of the way that I wanted the bodice to lay on my own body with such a bulky chemise underneath. So you'll see in the finished project, but I'm really happy with that decision, even though it's not necessarily period accurate. It is also something I needed to compromise, though, for the look. And then finally, in terms of getting into the habit of sewing wherever I go. So Lawrence doesn't know this, I don't think, but I have been sewing everywhere. I sew sometimes while I walk. I sew sometimes on the train. In fact, almost every time on the train now. I think I'm actually known on the Red Line now as the girl who sews. I sew at work sometimes, and my boss knows that. Don't worry. I sew in bed, as you do know at least. And I sew while we're watching TV. I sew while, I don't know, I'm thinking about things or while I'm planning other things like our weekly menus. I have been sewing almost nonstop if I can at least try to in every location. And the way that I have made that happen is honestly, it's habitual now. So I turn the TV on and immediately I grab my sewing equipment. I know that I'm going to work in the morning. I grab a bag, and it is always this bag too, which I think is just like a random bag that we got for free one night. But it's made out of canvas. And so it's kind of like, I don't know, I kind of like it. I don't know why. But it has, all of my basic sewing equipment in it now. But what I will say is what I do with this almost daily now is I decide what project that I'm going to work on. And then what I do is I think backwards, right? Because otherwise this would be a complete logistical nightmare. And I think about what I am going to do and where I'm going to do it. So let's see, sewing on the train to and from work. And I'm going to be working on my mystery piece, which if you've been following me on Instagram, then you may or may not know what this is. But if you haven't looked, then go and take the quiz and find out. But I'm going to work on my mystery piece today. And I know that I will most likely, knowing how quickly I sew, be able to get 3 of these panels done. So I take the 3 panels, I take the lace trim that comes along with it. I know I need my snips. I know that I need, some kind of thread, obviously not this color, but you get the idea. And I always need a thimble to keep my fingers at least halfway decent. And of course, the needle that I'm going to use and some pins. And as you can see, I actually now have invested in something that I can actually keep my pins in while I am traveling too. So now I can sew on the train all the time, which is kind of exciting. But anyway, yeah, so all of these things then go into the bag, and then the bag comes with me wherever I go. And now for the entire day, I could have 3 different doctor's appointments, or I could be at work, or I could be, I don't know, even getting groceries after work or whatever. And I'm going to be able to, on the bus or the train, sew with me wherever I go. And that is how I have gotten used to sewing wherever I go and, whenever as well. Because the other good thing about this is, again, I've been telling you that I'm like sewing in bed, or I may even sew on the plane tomorrow. This is pretty much already packed. I just maybe need to adjust a couple of things. And then it's good to go whether I'm in bed or I am on a plane or I am in another state. Doesn't actually matter. I can still take everything with me within reason. And that's really, really useful. So in terms of all of the crazy things that I came across in terms of the problems that I faced in, mounting a large project like this that I haven't necessarily ever done on my own before or outside of like a pseudo professional environment before, then I was intimidated to get started. I, had trouble actually making that first cut because I was so nervous. And then, of course, my space was super tiny. I was using a sewing machine, which I really didn't want to do, but I had to come to grips with that. And I had to get into the habit of actually making time for the things that I love. And those were the biggest challenges, really. So hopefully this has been a little bit useful for you, because I know that it's been a huge learning experience for me. So that's the reason why I wanted to share all of that with you. And my thought is we probably have some comments that have come in, and you may even have questions about some of the things that I asked about, or you want to share your own projects with me. And it looks like we still have a little bit of time to do that. So let's get started with that now.
Absolutely. And one comment that came in earlier on, this was from The Walker, who asks, how soft is the fabric? It looks kind of stiff. Interesting.
That's a really good shout. So this fabric is a cotton that has been made to resemble and have the texture of a linen. So it's supposed to be a little bit stiffer than your regular cotton, but it is also a very lightweight linen per se. And so it's pretty soft, but it also wrinkles pretty easily. So you might be getting the impression that it's kind of stiff because of the wrinkling that's going on right now. But something that you won't know if you're only just tuning in here for the first time is that this is actually 3 different layers of fabric. And that's one of the reasons why the bodice specifically looks so stiff, is we've got the outside, which is the linen, the inside, which is actually an interlining that's made of real linen, and it's a lot stiffer than this stuff. And then the lining itself, which is also made of the same cotton linen exterior. So while the outside and the very inside lining are the same as the skirt, which is pretty soft and pretty lightweight, the interlining inside here makes the bodice specifically a lot stiffer and a lot better when handling, for example, the pressures of these hand-sewn grommets that I made. And of course my body weight inside them, because I am gonna not tight lace, but it does lace a little bit. And I'm also not gonna be wearing a bra underneath. So it does need to be able to support me. And because of that, I have a stiffer interlacing or interlining rather inside. It's very good observation there.
Tartan Tabby asks, did you scout locations for a photo shoot, or did you just know of a great place to take them?
It was more about really putting two things together. So I didn't go scouting necessarily, but a place that I had been to a lot before, I realized would actually be really good for this. So hopefully they'll allow me to actually photograph us there. If not, we'll just have to be very covert and quick about it. But it is actually the perfect location, kind of by accident.
I like this, and we can perhaps relate to this very well, that Donna says, we've done the reverse of this. Donna says, always have to put away the materials because of the cat. Now tonight we've had to put away the cat because of the materials.
Right. No, you're absolutely right. When you have animals involved, and especially ours who likes to eat everything in sight, it is just really important, no matter how big or small your space is, to make sure that the animals do not get to them when you're not around.
It was said here that, well, Hillary says that she loves that you sew everywhere. I do, now that I've found out about it. I mean, because we've barely spoken in the last 3 or 4 weeks.
That's sort of what it feels like, unfortunately.
Yeah, so that's why I'm kind of out of the loop on that, I suppose.
Well, and it doesn't help that, I don't exactly look like your average Chicagoan on a pretty regular basis. So
yes, yeah, you've only enhanced that perception of you, I suppose, on the trains. Well, I'll keep a lookout for any wanted signs. So Sue M says you can use a roller cutter / blade instead of scissors if that helps.
Absolutely. Yeah. I have thought about getting a rotary cutter in the past. It's just, I have really nice gingers, and so I try to use them when I can.
What are they called?
Gingers.
Gingers?
Yeah.
Wow. So like gingers, is that how it's spelled?
No, it's got an H in it.
Oh, ruined. Okay, never mind. Yeah, well, and just adding to this, Tara is a crazy lady on the town sort of discussion. Tartan Tabby does say that walking and sewing sounds like you are way more coordinated than she is.
Well, I've only really done that a couple of times, and it's been specifically when I want to finish a very specific thing, but I know I have to get off the train. So both times it's been on the way home, and it has been very slow going because of that.
Big shout out. This Cassiopeia has joined and says, my son Tegan and daughter Aurora wanted to watch your stream with me tonight. They both say hello.
Oh, hi, Tegan and Aurora, right?
Yeah.
Oh, those are great names.
They are great names. One of them was a Doctor Who companion name, Tegan.
Yeah, Tegan.
I love that.
Well, Tegan and Aurora, hello. Welcome to our little party.
Yes. And just going back, we do have a comment here as well. This is again from Tartan Tabby, who says, how do you budget for your cosplay / more complicated sewing projects? Also completely support the no bra.
Yeah, actually, this thing is so much more comfortable than a regular bra, to the extent that I am considering maybe making one for everyday use. I don't know how I would make that happen yet, but I will keep you posted if I decide to do something like that, of course. In terms of budgeting, that is a really good question. And I think it's one that probably deserves more time. So I can't necessarily describe it in a, in a sentence or two, but maybe that's a really good topic for another one of our sew streams. So thank you very much for mentioning that.
We've got a lot of love here for gingers. From Hillary, who says that they are the best scissors.
That's one of the reasons why I haven't gotten a rotary cutter yet, because I really want the Ginger rotary cutter. Apparently it's like the very best thing in the world, but they're not making them right now. So if you know where to find a Ginger rotary cutter, you can put it in the comments and I will absolutely buy that. So there you go.
We are on the half hour.
We are indeed. Do we have any more comments or any questions that I should address before we go?
Well, it seems that our friends Tegan and Aurora are both giggling. We made their night.
Oh, good. Well, I am very glad that I could do that. And I guess with that, I will hopefully see you next week. We will be back before then, so don't worry. I am not missing out on SewStream, and neither should you. We are still trying to get to that 500 mark, and when we do, I will do another bonus SewStream. So make sure that you're sharing with your friends and your family members. Again, if you become a patron, then you may even get a bonus anyway pretty soon, because we are getting closer every time that I do one of these, which is really awesome. So thank you to my patrons. And yeah, that's it. So au revoir, mon amis.
There's that word again. Bye.